Another week in the books. We've had one of the craziest starts to an NFL season in recent memory. Let's obviously start with the fourth quarter debacle at SoFi Stadium before discussing that ho-hum Viking masterclass against the Texans and the rest of the upset-filled week 3. Joey, you texted me yesterday. I was at the airport coming back from the Bay Area, and I said, man, that's a tough one for the Niners. You said the worst loss in the Shanahan era. Obviously, Super Bowls and NFC Championship games are more painful, but just pure on the field, if all games count the same, this is the worst loss in the Shanahan era. Explain to me why you say that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious. It felt like it yesterday. It still feels like it today. The only one, again, the Niners had some just games where they were just awful, but that was like before they got the roster they have now, before they became, the contender. In the Kyle era, they've had this disappointing, blown leads in Super Bowls, but as for just not, I don't want to say not showing up, because they showed up for a good part of the game, in some aspects of the, sport of football, they were there. But the only one that comes close is I remember, partially because I went to the game, they played a home game a few years ago against Arizona, and Kyler was out. I forget who else. Somebody else big was out, and I'm like, "Oh, we're about to win this game, get back to 4-4."
It was Colt McCoy was starting.
Yeah, Colt McCoy and somebody else. It was not just Kyler; it was somebody else who also missed. I don't know who it was. I don't remember, but
Hopkins or something.
Yeah, it was Hopkins. It must have been Hopkins.
Yeah.
I was like, "There's no one on the team," because I remember it was James Conner. I was like, "No," because I remember him running up and down the field No, and then and that was a home game at Levi, and they just got, mollywopped. By the Arizona backups at home. But revisionist. We know they finished that season strong. It's one of the times. Yeah. I think that was the year they lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship. Okay, fine. Yeah. This one is week 3, and I'm are we making the playoffs? Forget the injuries. What happened?
And there are a lot of injuries to talk about, but
a lot of injuries that, a couple guys yesterday, 2 guys looked fantastic. The injuries were all, for the most part, on the offensive side of the ball. Not a problem. Not a problem. I thought Brock Purdy was sensational. I saw PFF gave him the second best grade he's ever gotten. I don't know what the first was, but he was awesome. With no one, with all the guys out, I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want other than to be drafted higher and maybe a couple inches taller. He was sensational. And Juwan Jennings,
best player on the field yesterday.
Juwan Jennings looks like Terrell Owens. He was awesome. He was, and I found it interesting. He didn't talk post game. I wonder, dude, why am I not the guy making the money? All these guys, and it's been brewing with him. He's been a clutch player, and if the 49ers were to finish that game off in the Super Bowl, he would have been my vote for Super Bowl MVP. But yeah, they have just some major flaws that I don't know that gets corrected with the roster they have, and the biggest one is their defense is terrible. We blame Steve Wilkes for it. He had a heck of a Super Bowl, but up until then, Detroit should have hammered us in the NFC. They were up and down the field, and if they kicked a few field goals, that we don't win that game and probably give up 35, 40 points. It seems, but it's just continued. They get. The Rams could not block anybody the first 2 weeks, and I'm going to say only 3 sacks. I think I just could not get consistent pressure on
against second and third string offensive linemen there for the Rams.
And Tutu Atwell might as well have been Cooper Kupp. And well, what are we? Our secondary is beyond slow. For some reason, we have 4 strong safeties and no free safety. Hufanga, Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, they all play the same brand of football. No one can cover. Tarvarius Ward was all pro last year. I think he's banged up this year, but he was giving up yards. And the guy, a lot of what the Rams attacked, the guy who they isolated just consistently was Dre Greenlaw's replacement, Devondre Campbell, the free agent pickup from the Packers. It cannot cover. He gave up a perfect passer rating to Matthew State. He was terrible. Awful.
Warner can only do so much.
Yeah, it really they're so dependent on turnovers. Look, Minnesota, if Fred Warner doesn't intercept Darnold in the red zone and punch a ball out at the goal line, it's 35-7 or whatever the scores would have been. Against the Jets, he forced a fumble. The Niners picked off Rodgers and okay, looks okay. But if they don't get turnovers, they got none yesterday. The Rams with a bunch of, I'm not gonna say losers, but guys.
I mean, it's the JV Rams. Yeah.
Just get a stop. Again, as bad as the Minnesota parts went. I mean, again, the fourth quarter was 20-14. No Hawkinson, no Addison, no Jefferson. Get a freaking stop. Can't do it.
Can't do it.
There's so many just. I'm not gonna say high pin because I think Bosa's. I mean, he's been not probably what they've hoped for. I think he would say it. I mean, he's getting no help. But I mean, sometimes I just wish it was every time I watch PJ Watt. I mean, is. I mean, he's wrecking the game.
Yeah.
And Bosa's okay, I'm fundamental. I'm in the right spot, covering the run. He looks like he thinks a lot.
Yeah. And they just need him to go back to instinct. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, he's getting double, if not triple teamed. If you
I think looking at
no one else is doing anything. Honestly.
Obviously, looking at the defense is one thing, but one thing that you were hammering home, and I think every Niners fan I know was hammering home yesterday, is that special teams is it's going to cost them multiple games this year.
It has. They've replaced the coordinator at least once. I thought maybe twice, but it just might only be once, and it's just consistently terrible. With these new rules with the kickoff, you're seeing teams kick it to the 1, 2, or we'll try and pin them inside the 30. Kyle every time is kick it into row 5. I don't even want to deal with special teams having started the 30.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him saying when they drafted Moody in the third round, he's I've never looked at so much special team kickers in my life. I hope to never do it again. Again, I'm not saying he does not ever care or value it. Obviously he does. You'd be beyond malpractice if you just don't care about a side of the football game. But they clearly he doesn't value it much. The bigger thing other than missed kick, you'd like Moody to make that 55-yarder. It's indoors. He's got the leg for it. You'd like to make the kick. My bigger issue is punt it out of bounds at the end of the game, cover better. But the biggest one is a fake punt.
Yeah.
It's 14-0 at midfield. The Rams are got nothing going on. It's got to be one of the most obvious fake punt situations ever. And change the game. They finish it. All of a sudden, it's 14-7, and you're Stafford did not complete a pass until midway through the second quarter.
Yeah, and you somehow gave up what would it end up being 27 points. I mean, that's just really unbelievable with how the game started. I saw 14-0, and I saw Stafford's stats, and I was sweet, that one's over. We're going to win our bet with Niners -7. That's all good. No, just a complete and utter disaster from. I mean, really, there
was a play. I think the Niners, at least 3, might have committed 4 penalties on defense.
Oh, I did see that play.
One of the guys got holding and hands to the face. Campbell was the guy who got
the play that set up the field goal to win the game. Yeah.
I'm guys, I think it was 7 penalties for 111 yards, 112 they got called.
I think your boy Campbell had 2 penalties on that play alone, if I remember right, because he was trying to cover up.
I know he got the one that counted.
Yeah. Oh, man. I was watching that on my phone on Red Zone, as I'm boarding a plane, thinking certainly there's no way that they're going to, I mean, at worst, this goes to overtime. And
it's the Rams, it almost was I was well, good thing we sucked hard because they got down quick, to the Niners. I'm they'll score. And I was I thought for sure they were going for 2.
Yeah.
Which honestly is kind of an indictment on the Niners. No, we'll tie it because we think we're going to stop you and then come right back down again. Sure they did.
Yeah.
But again, they said it at the broadcast. I think Purdy's got 1 at most, fourth quarter. I'm we got plenty of time. Here we go.
I did see that stat where it's he has 1 fourth quarter comeback and yet whatever his record is 23-4 or something as a starter.
Nice play to Ronnie Bell, catch the ball.
So many different guys you can look at in that game and blame it on, but really it's just, everyone other than Purdy and Jennings shares some blame in that complete collapse.
Huge. Ayuk, what are we doing? He had 10 targets, 5 catches.
His 3 games since signing that deal, oh boy.
Like, it's just, the whole thing is just...
he's very clearly the 4th or 5th best option on that offense right now if everybody's healthy. Like, Debo, when he was healthy, looked great. Kittle, when he was healthy, looked great. Jennings looks like the new TO. It's like McCaffrey, once he's healthy, will be more important than
Jordan Mason right now.
You would say that he's 6th. If everyone's healthy, you're like, Ayuk is our 6th option on offense. Like, 30 million.
And we like use check too. I mean,
Brent
honestly,
Williams is a weapon.
Well, I mean, even him, he's allowing pressures. Like, he looks overweight. He looks out of shape. It's 2 straight games. He's needed an IV.
Yeah. This feels.
I'm not trying to bag on like the future Hall of
2020.
Famer, but like this training camp matters. Someone said it, and it's so true. This is just a culmination of just the weirdness for the last like 6, 7, 8 months.
Yeah.
Like, eventually the check comes due,
Mm-hmm.
and like, you can't keep doing this. And the whole thing with Ayuk and the paying him and not paying, it was so weird how they didn't trade him at the draft and then still do this long drawn out crap that ends up with a huge deal. Like, if they were to do this and the number's like 25, I'm like, okay, they really negotiated that like 20 to still pay him that money.
Mm-hmm.
And to like miss the camp and like now off this start. They saw it last year. And Bosa the same thing, but Bosa was premier position, like pass rusher, like you have no one after him.
Mm-hmm.
With Ayuk, it's like we got Debo, like Juwan Jennings is clearly a player. Like, you drafted Ricky Pearl. We don't need him.
Yeah.
Like, our offensive line is getting worked consistently. Mm-hmm. I'd like another defensive lineman because we're not getting any pass rusher. It's just too many.
A huge misallocation of resources at the last minute, and it's going to screw them over this offseason and probably a couple off seasons after that, where that $30 million that they'd love to spend on an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, a tight end to replace Kittle when he gets, I mean, it's all going to Ayuk now, and you're like, oh boy, that is a decision that may haunt them for years to come. But it's like, okay, we've been very negative to start the pod. If you're John Lynch right now, like, what is your thought process? Like, how do you stem the bleeding from all this craziness that's happened in the last, not just the last 24 hours, but I'm talking since the Super Bowl ended and it's been all this drama. Like, what is there to do other than just surround Purdy with as much support as you can? Because clearly the dude has it.
I mean, well, step one is play the Patriots next week, but
thank God.
Yeah, like, I know Cincinnati's 0-3, but week 1 they went into Cincinnati and like beat them up and played good defense, and Stevenson ran the ball up and down the field. Like, do I think they're going to stop the run? I hope so. Like,
it's the only thing New England has, so you better stop it.
They're very stuck in their ways, which their ways has gotten them really far. So to say, like, they don't know, like, I'm not saying they don't know what they're doing, but like, willing to adapt has been not there. But clearly this defense is outdated, like the scheme, because it happened last year and it's still happening. And they're very much stuck. That's why they hired Nick Sorensen. They tried to go with Steve Wilkes, like somebody out of the Shanahan. I'm going to say defense.
So you're saying that they're still kind of running the Saleh, D'Amico.
They run exactly it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they need to adapt. Thing. Yeah.
And the reason why those defenses work, it's the Legion of Boom defenses, because they had Hall of Fame secondary. I could talk about, it's super like football nerdy, but I saw Mark Sanchez talk about it, and I find it super interesting how, like, the Rams every single play this year line up in that 11 personnel with 3 receivers, one running back, one tight end, and with just no Cup and no Puka, they couldn't do it. And so they ran like a ton. Basically, they were the whole game. They were in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. And the Niners had no answer for it. Like they just couldn't. What it did was it, and he explained it so well, but he was like, it kept the Niners in their base defense. So it kept like Devondre Campbell on the field. And then they'd get him
instead of the nickel corner.
Yeah. Instead of like Lenore or like, bring in, they rotated a few guys because no one could cover yesterday, but
get a Kello Witherspoon out there.
Yeah, they would put 2 tight ends, like they'd put like double team Bosa, double team the other guy, like, and again, we couldn't adjust, we couldn't, because they had him. It was 14-0. Stafford hadn't completed a pass halfway through the second quarter, and then it was just we just couldn't stop it.
McVay saw the weakness and just said, "All right, let's just attack that for the whole rest of the game." And man, the drop off from Greenlaw to Campbell is very large.
Drake Green, he's damn good. He gets overshadowed by Fred Warner, but he's damn good. And boy, shit comes fast.
Yeah. Change, as they say, change happens very slowly and then all at once.
Like it got late early in the season.
Yeah. We're like, it's only week 3, and now you're like, oh my God, it's already week 3.
I mean, any given Sunday, like if they somehow lose this weekend, which shit, it ain't good, Brock. I don't care what you say, day to day with the back. You're getting an MRI on your back.
Mm-hmm.
That's not nothing.
No. Oh, that barrage of tweets from Schefter today, basically one after the other with
Niner what's crazy
injuries.
is because we have a deadline tomorrow, so work's been, but this big project finally like is done tomorrow. So I had like my laptop on Monday Night Countdown, and like I'm in a meeting, like on some spreadsheets, and I'm like looking, and I'm just like,
what?
Purdy MRI back. By the way, Hargrave ripped his tricep. He's done, and McCaffrey's in Germany.
You're like, what? I just wanted to get
hell of a Monday.
I wanted to get a preview for tonight's game, but no, it's 49ers Center on ESPN. Absolutely brutal, man. We'll talk about their game.
And then like I was thinking about you too, like with for the pod and stuff, like you had your jersey, McCarthy goes down. I'm like, is Sam Darnold winning the MVP? Like shit, like.
Oh, we got to talk about that.
I'm sorry your win against the Niners just looks worse because we might just not be very good.
Well, my note here about the Vikings that was back-to-back dominations of Super Bowl contenders. You might object to that for both
Super Bowl.
For both the Niners and the Falcons.
Yeah, my Texans going to the AFC.
I'm Texans.
I mean, barely beat the Colts and Chicago and
got absolutely spanked by the Vikings. Yeah, another O'Connell and Flores masterclass. I think I said this earlier. Early in the season, coaching matters more than the talent on the roster. And then as the season goes along, I think the talent really shows through. So you're seeing these Tomlin and Harbaugh and O'Connell coach teams, Andy Reid coach teams that are 3-0. Mike McDonald proving to be a really good coach in Seattle, 3-0. And you're seeing these coaches like Robert Saleh, like Eberflus, like just guys who historically lose, struggling to start the season. So there is that caveat. However, as Stephen A. would say, the eye test, and I've talked to a lot of people who watch football, who bet on football, the eye test for the Vikings is even better than the results, which is shocking because you look back at 2022 when we started the pod, every week we were talking about some unbelievable one-score Vikings victory that I don't know how they did it. They needed a 61-yarder as time expires, or we were down 33-0 and we won 36-33. You're like, how does this keep happening? This is the complete opposite this year, where it's just from the second they blow the whistle to start the game, just energy, hitting the opposing quarterback on almost every offensive snap, and just Sam Darnold not making as many critical errors as he used to when he was a member of the Jets in Carolina. I just, if I were to look at it through 3 games and say, one thing that I think is for real and one thing that I think is not for real is the defense. I said before the season they would be top 8. I amend that now to I think they're top 3. And I really think they could be the number 1 defense in the league if this continues. Because I look at that pass rush. This guy Van Ginkel, who was good at his previous stop in Miami, oh my God. Like every other
sneaky,
play.
right? Isn't it crazy? Sneaky.
It's
He's a sneaky athlete.
He just knows where to be.
Probably works hard.
Yep.
Team guy.
First one in, last one out. Fundamentals. No, I mean, first of all, it looks like he's born to be a Viking with blonde hair flowing out of his horned helmet. I'm like, that's our dude right there. But also, like, Blake Cashman.
If you say the name Van Ginkel, you're like, am I putting that on the jersey?
You're like, no, it's terrible. And then you watch him play and you're like, oh my God, that guy's name should be like Ragnar. Like, that is a Viking right there. But I mean, it's almost every play against Purdy, against Daniel Jones, and now against Stroud, where within a second and a half of the ball hitting the quarterback's hand, there is someone in his ear hole. And I'm like, okay, unless there's significant injuries that pile up, that's not going to change game in, game out. Like, we've now faced 3 different types of quarterbacks, and all 3 of them are just getting absolutely hammered. We gave up 6 to Daniel Jones. We gave up 7 to CJ Stroud. And then the Niners, as you said, yes, they put up 17 points. It could have only been 7 if there weren't 2 red zone turnovers by the Vikes. So, I mean, right now, I would say the defense is as good as any in the league. I will have a caveat with the offense. I think Darnold will regress, and I think, he's been amazing to this point, and we saw yesterday he got his leg rolled up on and had to get an MRI today that came back clean. But our offensive line, left tackle, right tackle, very good. Interior of the offensive line is bad. We're going to get exposed by, some good teams with good pass rushes. But man, I mean, it's very odd to have a Viking team that is not only undefeated, but passes the eye test as well. You caught some of that game. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it on the field, like, if you take away, like, I mean, because what do we have them, like, both like 8 and 9 or something?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they're one of the best teams in the league, because if they're not, I mean, we got rolled. So yeah,
you look at the 5 undefeated.
They're yeah, like you're saying, their pressure rate, however you want to call it, sack number, like, it's, I don't know if it's like historic. Maybe it is.
We do lead the league in sacks by 2 over the number 2.
But it seems just beyond the sacks. It feels like, and like, I just chalked it up to the Niners' offensive line not being great. Why we gave up so much pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, first road game, Minnesota's a tough place to play. Yeah.
But now it's been, it wasn't just the Niners. It was, Houston's got some problems on the offensive line. Laramie Tunsil had false starts on 3 consecutive plays. I saw some stat that was like the first time in the era that they've recorded, who committed the penalty, that someone has got the same foul called on them 3 straight plays in a row. And I was like, that was pretty unbelievable. The Vikings fans were just at the absolute apex yesterday after they saw that first drive, second play pick, immediate Viking touchdown. Crowd is loud. Tunsil just cannot get the silent count figured out. And the fans, after the first false start, they're nuts. After the second false start, they're nuts. After the third false start, you're like, oh man, like this Houston offensive line is terrified of what's coming. And it didn't change for the rest of the game. They got 1 garbage time touchdown after already being down 4 scores. I can't believe it, man. I mean, my question to you is, what is the ceiling? Because as a Vikings fan, I say the ceiling is probably still maybe 10-7, 11-6, making the playoffs, but not going that far, because Sam Darnold is our quarterback. But he had 4 touchdowns, no picks. His passer rating's like 119 through 3 games. What's the ceiling? I don't know.
Why not? I mean, really, it's really hard to win, but at the same time, I don't think it takes much. Like when you're a good team, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Who would they be afraid to play?
The thing is like, Jordan Addison's coming back next week. They say Hawkinson's coming back either week 5 or week 7. We already have the best wide receiver in the NFL. We have 2 of the 8 or 10 best tackles in the NFL. We have the number 1 pass rush in the NFL. We have a secondary that, yes, the corners are not great, although one of them is a former All-Pro Defensive Player of the Year in Stephon Gilmore. They've been okay. But we got this safety group with Bynum, Smith, and Metellus that I think all 3 would be Pro Bowl caliber if the season ended today. Like, I'm looking at this team. And by the way, our rookie kicker hasn't missed anything. I'm like, well, the pieces are there, Jim. Oh, man, I don't know, Jim. Like, here we go.
Yeah, I know. I mean, yeah.
Pretty shocking, man.
The only thing maybe stop.
When has this happened? We've been doing this podcast.
2 things. Number 1, the Giants are terrible. Although,
yeah, okay.
Hey, I would give credit where credit. One this week, Daniel Jones.
Malik
shit on him all the
Neighbors,
time. He looked great. One thing I can say about the Vikings is maybe the Niners are terrible and maybe the Texans are terrible.
Maybe everybody except the Vikings, Steelers, Chiefs, Seahawks, and Bills are all terrible.
It feels like it's been a really weird year.
It has. So many upsets. Let's just get into some of the stuff that happened this week outside of our teams.
Oh, sorry. Last thing. One thing I was going to say is the division. Because the Packers look winning with Malik Willis.
Yeah.
Packers look really good.
Yeah.
Detroit bounced back.
On track.
Tough one against Seattle this week, Monday night, but
we get 2 against the Bears, so that's 2 wins right there. So,
yeah,
it just brings me so much joy that Caleb Williams is so bad.
Chicago, a playoff team? In what league?
Them under 9.5, the greatest bet in the history of football. What a joke that people thought Eberflus was going to win 10 games with a rookie QB. Anyway, a lot of upsets this week, man. Yet again, I mean, obviously, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but the only quarterback in the NFL with 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a game is Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle. He comes in. The Panthers not only beat the Raiders, they beat the shit out of them on the road. The Panthers are all of a sudden 1 game back in the division after being the worst team in the NFL.
Panthers have the same record as the Niners.
It's insane. And this, our discussion last week at the end of the pod actually did really well on social media, which was nice. We're talking about how quarterback play has dropped off so much. Andy Dalton is a guy who was drafted in the 2nd round in 2011. This is his 14th season in the league. This is a guy who most people considered to be a 2nd or 3rd or even 4th tier quarterback at his peak. He comes in for Bryce Young and just absolutely carves up an NFL defense for 4 straight quarters. Like, what does that say about
defense that won in Baltimore the week before too?
So impressive. And
I said it before. It was a really bad day to be Bryce Young.
Oh, no one had a
because everyone has been shitting on the whole operation in Carolina. You replace one guy with, again, a guy who's been a backup, journeyman backup, last few years of his career. Like, I don't think Antonio Pierce and the Raiders were all that scared to see him, and he looked like Dan Marino.
He had 3 or 4 passes that were just like perfect touch passes, like Brady used to make, where it's like it misses the defender by an inch and hits his receiver right in the hands, and you're like, if you gave Bryce Young 50 throws there, maybe one of them does that. Like, really, really unbelievable.
It's one of those times where you're a GM, you're like, see, I'm not a bad GM. Like, we have good players.
Mm-hmm.
We just might have missed on the most important one.
I wanted to talk about kind of the NFC South falling apart too. The Bucs, that train is off the rails after everybody. This is another one where I'm like, veterans, coaches, schemes that have been together a long time. They do so well to start the season, but eventually it starts to slip. Looks like the Bucs are falling apart after just getting manhandled by the Bo Nix Broncos at home. The Saints, they only lost by 3 to Philadelphia. To only put up 12 points on a Philly defense that I think is not good at all. That really showed that the Saints are kind of frauds from what we saw from the first 2 weeks. And then the Browns. I mean, yes, that game against Dallas was not ideal, but after winning against Jacksonville, I was like, okay, they'll do the same thing Stefanski always does. They're going to run the ball and win ball games. No, they looked like ass at home and killed my survivor pool, by the way, against the Giants. There's a lot of teams in this league that through 2 weeks we were certain, oh, this is an improving team or this is a contender, and through week 3 we're now like, oh, write them off, cross them off. Like pretty crazy,
Yeah,
especially the Bucs. Like what the hell was that?
Yeah, it's super weird. I mean, I don't know who. It's impossible other than like a couple, like Kansas City's 3-0, and like we all know what they do, but like they haven't looked like they're firing on all cylinders.
All 1-score games that they could have lost.
And Pittsburgh, sorry. No,
you're not a believer in Justin Fields as the new.
I'll give him credit. I'll give credit. He's
been okay.
He's been good.
Yeah,
it's been good. I think their defense is. I mean, obviously, it was good, but like it looks really good.
You got those Geno Smith MVP futures? You bet on him?
Can't say that it did. Seattle's interesting. I would like to see them. I like to see them against Detroit. See what they look like.
Yeah, because they have gotten so lucky. You go Bo Nix, followed by Jacoby Brissett.
I just saw a few things like before the season. Just him, he seems like a button-up guy. Like easily see why they hired him. So let's see. But yeah, we'll see this week. But yeah, I mean that's why I kind of said why not Minnesota. I mean, they look really good, really good. And Buffalo looks really
an
good.
absolute wagon right now. And I want to talk more about them when we preview their Sunday night game next week, because that is the early game of the year. That's the best game that we've had in the NFL. It's Buffalo at Baltimore on Sunday Night Football next week. And I just feel like with Baltimore being 1-2, Buffalo coming off the big win, it's like that's a slugfest. That's going to be a really good one. Let's talk a little bit about next week. The Niners got the mother of all get-right games at home against the woeful Pats. They're favored by 10.5. They really got to just put the hammer down there. Obviously, priority number one is to see if Purdy's healthy and all these other guys that have been injured are healthy. But going into that game, I just got to put the pedal down and win that one. I mean, if that's one that's, say it's third quarter and it's still a game, you got major problems. And I'm not really worried. I'm not going to bet them this week, but
I'm not convinced it's not going to be close.
Just the warning bells are going off for you. You're like alarm
bells.
Bells.
Like as a fan, you're just like, because I think I said again, this was before I thought everyone's gonna be out. But again, even with all these guys out, I would have said they still should have hammered them. I'm not worried about the offense. Like, I mean, Kyle will get guys open, Purdy will hit them. But like, yeah, if I was them, I'd be pretty rattled losing to the Rams B- squad. If that.
Defense, special teams, and vibes all off right now. Got to get right in that one. Vikings are playing in the border battle at Green Bay. I've got some friends who are going to the game. Oh, is that going to be? If we win that one, I don't know what to tell you. At that point, you are not going to be able to keep that hype train.
You're like, the season ain't like everything, and then you're like, I was not prepared.
Yeah.
To like go through a grueling season of like the emotional toll.
I told you
when like a really good team.
When McCarthy got hurt, my excitement for this season went from a 9 out of 10 to like a 2 out of 10. I'm back now at like an 8.5. And if we beat Green Bay, it's at a 17. Like, holy, because Love is coming back.
That's the thing when I was trying to, people are like, it's just all the people say it's just a game, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's not always fun. Everything about it, like, trust me, like the Niners being as good as they have, like, yeah, it makes football even more exciting than it already is. However, what's not fun is when it doesn't go well. Because as a fan, you're like, you only get so many shots. Like, that's why the Super Bowl, like last year, the Super Bowl, like 4 or 5 years ago, it's like, man, this doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we'll be back. Oh, like, well, shit. It's week 3. We're 1-2, and like, damn, we're gonna make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Niners. because they play the Chiefs at home, I thought maybe they'll be like -1. Everyone it depends on who's healthy, whatever.
Right.
But like at home, probably be like -1, 2, maybe if the Niners were like humming.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not. They're going to be underdog. But like the Niners are probably going to be favored in 17 games, or at least pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Like that means every time you lose, like it's a big bummer.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like you're not going 17-0, and probably obviously not going like 14-3.
Yeah.
But still, you're just like,
and it's so different because we were 1-point favorites against the Giants, 5.5-point dogs against the Niners, 3-point dogs last week, and all 3 times I'm just like, oh my God, we won the game. But if we had lost, I would have been like, oh well, we played them tough. It's
we played them tough. There's no we played them tough. There hasn't been a we played them tough in like 6 years.
Yeah, since Jimmy G tore his ACL in week 1.
It's it's like we're trying to get day one. It's like we're trying to get the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Like the year before, 2 years ago when they lost the game in Philly, it was like, damn, it would have been nice to have that game at home. It's like the Niners were the 2 seed, I think, had to play in Philly. The 1 seed, oh man, like they're like, if we would have beaten Chicago like week 1 like that NFC, the tiebreaker, like game could have been. So like last year, it was like they did not shy away. They're like, we're trying to be the 1 seed, and like again this year, like especially after last year, it's like we're trying to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and you can't do that in September, but you sure can lose it.
And it makes every game just so.
Again, as a fan, you're just like, yeah, that's just one that like, oh my God, now we got to like beat a team. Might be a tougher game. Like, it's like, oh, we could have afforded to lose, the Chiefs at home, or like maybe in Green Bay or whatever.
And now
you lose to the Rams.
Yeah. Now those games that you had circled on your calendar as tough ones, you got to get 2 or 3 of those instead of just 1 or 2. Like you have.
Well, the whole point was it's like, welcome to the party, because not sure you were prepared for that.
No.
If you predict your team 8-9, but.
Welcome,
Trust me, being like fans of other teams and other sports, like it's way better to do this than be looking at draft picks in September.
Yeah, or be the 2019 through 2024 San Jose Sharks and just never play a game that matters.
Yep.
No, this is it's new territory for the Vikes, and man, if we win that one with especially getting Addison back, I'm like, if the offense is humming, we got a shot there. But again, Jordan Love is going to be back for that game. All indications are so. Big one there. 2 really good games next week that I want to highlight. Buffalo at Baltimore. I mentioned it earlier. Game of the year, early game of the year, Sunday Night Football. Buffalo. I mean, they have looked like the best team in the league. The Chiefs have been good. The Vikings have been very good. Buffalo has been excellent. And I think in this game, normally I think if the season had gone as everyone expected, Baltimore would be 3.5, 4-point favorite. Baltimore's only a 2-point favorite because Buffalo has looked amazing. And Baltimore, I mean, they almost lost that game to Dallas after being up 28-6 late in the 3rd quarter. Like that's a team that really has trouble closing out games despite being a running football team. I really want to bet on Baltimore in this spot just because, I'm trying to predict a flat spot for Buffalo here, given they've been just that. I watched the majority of that game today, and those fans from the second the game started to the second the game ended, it was like Mardi Gras there. It was just like insane. And I'm like, that leads me to believe on a short week, they're going to be a little bit flat traveling down to Baltimore. So I like Baltimore there. What are your thoughts?
No. No. I think Buffalo's, it might have done them some good to like not have so much pressure, because a lot of people were like, oh, this is the year they come back down, like trade Diggs.
Like me, like this idiot right here.
Like a lot of people. But maybe that was good for them. I mean, maybe they're just another team and not like, holy shit, like Buffalo, you get over the hump, better win the Super Bowl. Like, and now all of a sudden, like Sean McDermott sure knows what he's doing on defense. James Cook has helped him out tremendously. And yeah.
Their rookie wide receiver Coleman had a great game tonight. And I was like, if you're going to replace Diggs, I mean, Shakir's looked good. Coleman's looked good. Obviously, Kincaid is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I think he's like second or third in the league with tight end receptions. I mean, that team is a complete team right there. But I also saw the first 3 quarters of the Baltimore-Dallas game, and that's the Baltimore we know. They go to another team's house and run. I think they ran for, it was like 293 yards on Dallas. And granted, Dallas has some major problems. Chris Collins were granted. I mean, they have a lot of problems. But Baltimore, I mean, they're going to run for 250 a game here if they keep playing like this. So I kind of like them in that spot. And then the Monday night game, Seattle, Detroit. So you got 3-0 going to 2-1. This is such an interesting game for 2 reasons. Number one, as you mentioned, we got to see what the Seahawks are. They have played dog shit after dog shit after dog shit. I mean, Skylar Thompson was so bad in that game. And then he got hurt, and then Tim Boyle came in, and I was like, that is not an NFL player. But, like, we got to see what we got with Seattle there. Like, can Mike McDonald go against a team that's more talented than his and get a result? Because that would be really impressive. And then number 2, these 2 teams have played in Detroit each of the last 2 seasons. And the Seahawks won both of those games in Detroit. And both of them were like 51-48 and 48-37. Like, just insane scoring. I really want to pick the over in this game because it's only 46. So I'm thinking, like, is this going to be a high-scoring game? Whatever. Or is that Mike McDonald defense for real? You're going against the Lions, their offense has been a little underwhelming to start the season. The defense has actually been pretty darn good. So I think that's going to be a good one. And you, as a Niner fan, are going to be watching that one intently to see, are the Seahawks for real or not?
Yeah, just see them against a good opponent. And, Detroit has probably not gotten off to as good of a start as they would have wanted to. Interested to see, Ben Johnson against Mike McDonald in his defense. But, yeah, I don't know what to make of Seattle. They played crap teams, which, hey, no one cares. Like 3-0. You don't get to, choose when and where you play people, whatever. So you play what's on your schedule, and they're 3-0. No apologies needed. But, however, are they going 11-6 and win the division? I like to see them what they do this game, but they play well here and win. Yeah, this is a problem because the Niners would be assuming they win.
Careful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then they head to Seattle week. No, it'd be 2 weeks after that.
We always cover like just 5 games, so I want to throw one out there because we didn't get to talk about this. We covered the Vikings, the Niners, and then the Sunday night, Monday night games. Washington at Arizona is a game that nobody would have gave a shit about when you looked at the schedule release. After watching Jaden Daniels tonight and after watching how Kyler Murray's played to start the season, that's going to be a really fun one. But Jaden Daniels, man, those 2 bombs to McLaurin, I mean, it's very clear to me. I mean, I bet before the season him to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and you and I both agree that we liked him better than Caleb Williams. But it's a big gap between him and everybody else in that rookie quarterback room. Like, man, did he look good tonight.
Yeah. Pat myself on the back. Yeah, I said would have taken him over Caleb. Stupid, didn't take him for Rookie of the Year because I was like, I'll just give it to Caleb. Well, he looks like shit. And the Bears suck. He looks as long as he stays upright.
Mm-hmm. Because he loves to run. In that game, I mean, he is, every time his first read isn't there, he looks to run. And then if something comes available before he hits the line of scrimmage, he's still willing to throw it a lot of the time. But, man, he is just hunting for a first down with his legs. And I like you said, I think there's going to be an injury at some point with the style that he plays. But, man, when it looks like it does tonight.
Exactly like RG3.
Yeah. And they just showed after his game tonight, he has the second most rushing yards through 3 career games by a quarterback after RG3. So it's like, okay, the eye test was right. Like, he really is similar to rookie RG3, who was electric. So that Washington team went like 10-6 and won the division before he tore his ACL. So I think our pick before the season of Washington over 6.5.
Is that like the coaching staff they keep talking about?
Yeah, the 2012 Washington Redskins at the time. It was Mike Shanahan, head coach.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan, offensive coordinator. On the staff was what? LaFleur?
It was LaFleur, McVay, McDaniel.
O'Connell. Yeah.
I don't know if O'Connell, maybe he was.
No.
There's just so many they've only fit in the picture.
Yeah.
And it's the Shanahan, father-son.
All offensive coaches.
Yeah, LaFleur, McVay, McDaniel.
Really unbelievable.
And they hired Jay Gruden.
Interesting choice, fellas. No, but I mean, kudos to you, Jaden Daniels. I mean, obviously the Bengals are in big trouble. That's another thing to talk about. But man, Washington, that's a team to watch out for. The defense is bad.
Bengals.
What'd you say?
I said life comes fast at you too, Bengals. Just like I mean,
Bengals and Niners Super Bowl pick. If you made that
again, another like just cumulative effect of the shit that's happened last year. Like Burrow, like injured again. Like, did he have like? Is he healthy? Whatever. Like, which I the
Jamar Chase drama, the T Higgins drama,
everything. And I mean, don't forget, didn't like Trey Hendrickson want more money or something too? Like, I can't even recall if he got it or whatever. They just, who knows? But yeah,
Mixon took some parting shots as he left the team. A lot of this happens in the NFL quicker than in every other sport. Like we are 21 days into the season and we're like, life comes at you fast.
I'm obviously a lot of people are a big Joe Burrow guy, but it's going to get loud.
Yeah, and it doesn't get any easier for them looking at their schedule. They got a brutal road coming ahead. So, I mean,
we did that with Baltimore last week. Like, if they don't win this week, like, look at their schedule.
Baltimore had to beat Dallas or they were absolutely cooked because, their schedule, I mean, they got Buffalo and then they got at Pittsburgh. So it's a tough run for them as well. We got to save some time for Jack and the Bum of the Week. So I want you to give me your bronze, silver, and gold here. This is, I would say, in the 2+ years we've been doing this pod, the most candidates we've ever had for Jack and the Bum of the Week because there was so many just critical mistakes or, a team that just absolutely let everyone down. And we have to cover all of them. I'm just going to rattle off some names and then I'll give you the floor because there's so many options. Usually I give a little blurb for each one. Fuck that. There's just too much. Kyle Shanahan, obviously, Jake Moody, a lot of these guys in the Niner game that you could blame on, pick one. Okay. Antonio Pierce with his stupid comments about his team after the game, the Titans, who I think are very clearly the worst team in the NFL, just made Malik Willis look like prime Randall Cunningham out there. The Browns lost to Danny Dimes, made him look elite. The Bears, you face Anthony Richardson, who can't hit the broadside of a barn with a football, and you just get housed. I mean, terrible football team. The Jags, they just lost 47-10, and we were made to believe before the season that they were a contender. Get the fuck out of here. The Bengals, 0-3, completely hopeless, bad vibes all around. Where do you want to go, Joey?
Well, first, I'd like to start this Jack and the Bum of the Week segment by, and I don't want to do it, but it is interesting because so much pressure is put on one position. I don't know if you could have a worse week as somebody who doesn't play than Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm. Last week's Jack.
Last week's Jack and the Bum. I'm not even going to give him honorable mention, but I'm just saying it. If you've ever been replaced at anything, and then the person coming in is just like, you don't even know, shit. Like, maybe it was me. Like, am I? Like, you just start.
You question everything.
and just like some of the reaction of like some of the players, like his teammates, not like trashing him personally, but like they were clearly excited. Like, all right, Andy's playing. That's got to be tough. Anyways, let's start. I don't know if you said it, but like we'll go like a little 1, 2, 3, gold, silver, bronze. Bronze medal. I'm gonna give it to the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
Because you lose to Danny Dimes at home, and like not only just lose it, he looks good. Like numbers were good, really good. And, like,
almost a perfect passer rating.
I thought your thing was defense. Like we can all bag on Deshaun here, but like as far as I know, like Myles Garrett's quite good. Denzel Ward's pretty good. Like, don't they have your guys, Darius
Smith? Yep, it's a good team, supposedly.
At home, the Danny Dimes. I mean, I heard someone say this. Someone said, it was a comment by some, probably maybe a guy, maybe a bot, by something 012. Like whatever. But they said the Browns' only hope is to like somehow get Deshaun tied up with Diddy. So that's their only hope. But they got bigger problems than that, apparently.
I had a friend who's in my fantasy football league who said, it's really sad. Now Deshaun Watson is a better person than he is a football player. I'm like, ow, that's bad.
Things that make you just go, is it? Is he? Number 2, the Jaguars. Today's performance, I mean, another just perennial bum contender.
For multiple years.
Like, talk about criticism. It's about to get loud for Trevor Lawrence. And I wish I would have saw it or saved it, but I saw on like that Bleacher Report app that I sometimes will go to like the community page, see some comments as close to like Twitter as I get. And this person put a graphic of Bryce Young versus Trevor Lawrence. And like Trevor's stats are like a hair. And I mean a hair. Maybe a hair on a bald guy. Like better than Bryce Young.
A wispy hair.
Like maybe a pube better than Bryce Young. And today's performance does not help. It's weird. Like the discourse and just the league value of him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know how quickly, like, you draft a receiver, like, this guy can't play. It's like, this guy sucks. You know?
Out of the league. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, quarterback, some just get so many opportunities. I'm like, we just crap on, like, that draft guy. Like, Zach Wilson is like a meme. Like, Justin Fields, people think he's stupid. Like, Trey Lance, like.
Mac Jones is a
bum.
play
the UFL. Yeah. Like, why are we not including him? Why? And I just truly do not want to believe it's because he's like 6'6", all the physical tools, the first overall pick, you know, like seems like a decent guy. He is just I should say he's mid. Like, is he that? Like,
he's not even mid. Yeah, he's a bad quarterback. I mean, he's a below average quarterback. He's not even average. You can't even say he's average.
But you know, these other guys we talk about are closer to being out of league. This guy just got a humongous deal.
Yeah.
How could
people try to group him in with Cousins and Dak and Purdy? Get the fuck out of here.
Those guys, although, look. Yeah,
give me Sam Darnold, baby. We don't want Trevor Lawrence.
Again, this is where some of the stuff, I talked about it a bit, like Juwan Jennings. You don't think he's like a little, because he had to sign an extension this offseason too. You know what he got? He got like 2 years, like 11 million or 12.
Mm-hmm.
That's like 6 per. You don't think he's like this guy held out all freaking year, shows up in like 30 million and like, you don't think they're doing that with like.
Oh, yeah. Brock Purdy's looking at Trevor Lawrence's contract and goes, I'm twice as good as him. Give me $100 million a year.
It's just crazy. Like, I don't know why other teams haven't been like Mahomes. Like, you're not making more than him. It's not happening. I don't care. Somebody else can do that. I'm not doing it. Like, if you are.
And Lawrence is the worst of all of them, of all the contracts.
Who's?
Lawrence is the worst of all of them, of all the contracts. You can say, Dax is really bad. Deshaun's is awful. Russell Wilson's was awful. You look at Lawrence and you're like, they gave him all that money based on what? Because Watson at one point was an elite top 5 quarterback. Wilson at one point was considered to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Okay, what have we seen from Trevor Lawrence to indicate that he's worth even a mid-range quarterback deal, and they gave him top of the market? Unbelievable.
Well, I guess that was the silver medal. Gold medal, I mean, I got to do it. It goes to the 49ers. Let's go, everybody. We'll start with Kyle. Just, I mean, to blow the lead. It's one thing to blow it in the Super Bowl. Like, Kyle can't win the big one. Well, this wasn't a big one. This was week 3 in September. And just a complete failure of just – I mean, number one, special teams, but defense, in my opinion, it just, like I said earlier, a culmination of just shit rolling downhill for like since mid-February.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think they miscalculated the Brandon Ayuk situation. I think they managed the resources in terms of cap space, draft picks. Why the heck on earth, Ricky Pearsall, do we take him in the first round when, after Juwan Jennings is this guy like wide receiver 4? You just took in the first round? Like, after two guys are making huge money, we still can't block. Like,
you said before we went on the pod that, Kyle Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, is as good as he's ever been. But Kyle Shanahan, the CEO.
The coordinator had a great day. Coordinator,
yeah.
With everyone out, still put up the points. I know that was only 24, but could have been more. You make the kick. I know they had like turnover. Like, again, they were moving the ball. The problem is Kyle Shanahan, the head coach, entirely CEO. It was
a big red flag.
It's Minnesota one game. Like this one is. It's a panic.
It's emblematic of a lot of problems that have been festering under the surface for 7 months. And you've been calling them out. To be fair, it's like, I think sometimes fans are more critical of their own team than they would be of any other team. But in this case, it's been warranted. Like you've been saying since the Super Bowl, and even before the Super Bowl, when they were 13-4 and just kicking teams' asses, going into the Packer game, going into the Detroit game, going into the Super Bowl, and all throughout the offseason, you're like, there are major structural issues here beneath the surface that worried me. And now look, they are all coming to the surface right around.
We thought the playoffs, I didn't, but a lot of people were like, the outliers. Like, again, maybe a little bit more experienced Packers team. Again, that guy Carlson makes the kick. Like, they have the season and lose in the divisional round.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Dan
Detroit
Campbell doesn't go crazy. Yeah.
Mr. Get 18 Blackjack hit me, like doing that the whole second half. And ironically, they had their best playoff game in the Super Bowl against the, dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm interested to see where the season goes because, it's panic button time. But like, is it like? Yeah, they very easily. But like, yeah, you could see them get healthier, right the ship. Make it maybe a few. Someone suggested them try and make a trade for Reddick, help the pass rush. But I'm like, why is he going to come here without a deal?
Yeah. And that's the one thing you don't have is the ability to add another $25-30 million a year player onto your roster. So, man, it's deserving. Obviously, there were other teams that are in an even worse spot than the Niners, but given the expectations going into the season and given the way it's unfolded, that's an excellent choice. So there's Joey's Jack in the Bum of the Week, gold, silver, and bronze. It was just too many choices. Let's do a quick You Like That picks of the week. I'm 5-9-1. We are leaking oil here. We're bleeding on the freeway. We need to get this thing into the garage and fix it. We got problems here. I'm just going to go simple this week. My buddy Ryan, who listens to the pod, who I golf with all the time, he has had an unbelievable start to the season, basically betting against the public. He sees, like last week, everyone picked Cleveland and Tampa Bay, and he's like, okay, nobody in the world is picking Denver. Nobody in the world is picking the Giants. He's like, let's just go with the opposite of what everybody else says. And I was like, okay, I like that strategy. It works early in the season, so I'm going to do a little bit of that this week. We're going to go simple. Atlanta's at home against New Orleans. New Orleans showed me last week that they were fraudulent, and Atlanta probably should have won that game against Kansas City. I think Cousins actually looks pretty good. I think he's getting healthier week in, week out. Give me Atlanta -1.5 against New Orleans. The Rams are +3 at Chicago. +3. Like, I get that Chicago's at home, but it's a bad Chicago team with a bad head coach against Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. Like, give me 3 with the Rams. Let's keep it simple. Green Bay -2.5 against my Vikings. It's the ultimate flat spot for the Vikes. Everyone in the world is telling them how great they are. And Jordan Love is coming back. And by the way, the Packers just won 2 games convincingly in both weeks with Malik Willis at quarterback. And not only that, he looked really good. I think they're going to do well in that game. Give me Green Bay -2.5.
I would call that game like the Coach of the Year bowl.
I would agree too. I mean, these are the two that have been the two best so far this year. You can say Tomlin maybe, but I mean, he just does that every year. There's no offense going over there.
I'm not. I mean,
This is the Coach of the Year bowl.
McDermott. I mean, McDermott's had a pretty good 3 weeks.
Yeah. They always give it to the guy that beats the adversity, though, and it's like you have Josh Allen, like an actual Buffalo, as your quarterback in Buffalo. So, like, good for you.
It's a big plus for LaFleur doing what he's doing. Malik Willis, that's like a.
And it made Tennessee and Indianapolis look so bad, and their coaching staff looks so bad. So good on you for LaFleur. I hate the Packers. I really want to win this game, but it's a flat spot for the Vikes. I'll take Green Bay -2.5. I expected that to be 3 or 3.5. Baltimore -2 at home against Buffalo on Sunday Night Football. I like that. It's prime time, but not in the playoffs. Lamar and Harbaugh. Everyone's going to rush to the window to bet Buffalo in this game. Like everyone. I think this may close Buffalo -3. But at the time of recording this podcast, it's Baltimore -2. Give me them. I think they're going to win the game. That's just a fade of everybody in the world who's going to be betting Buffalo. And then Seattle, Detroit. I mentioned this earlier. Their last two meetings in Detroit in the 2023 and 2022 season, the Seahawks won both, and both games had over 80 points scored. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think Goff starts to air it out a little bit more with a little bit more effectiveness. And if you watch the Seahawks this year, Geno loves that deep ball to Metcalf and Smith-Njigba and Lockett. So high-scoring game there. I like that one. Here's your You Like That picks of the week. We're going to get back on track for week 4. Atlanta -1.5 against New Orleans. The Rams +3 at Chicago. Green Bay -2.5 against my Vikings. Baltimore -2 versus Buffalo, and then Seattle, Detroit over 46. The You Like That picks of the week. Joey, it's time for your Feels Great Baby, your wildest take you feel best about currently, and you're keeping it close to home. Oh, boy.
Maybe this is a little bit of like reverse psychology, because last week I had the Panthers going 0-17, and they're 1-2. So maybe this will help. But yeah, it's Brock Purdy getting an MRI on his back. I think the Niners missed the playoffs.
Wow.
Because they're after the Patriots, and again, Arizona, frisky team. Like, they get Arizona at home, and then it goes at Seattle, Kansas City at home, Dallas at home, which again, I mean, maybe they're not very good. But then they go at Tampa Bay, trying to think. Then I think they come home for Seattle, and then they go this guy's stretch like at Green Bay, at Buffalo. They play in Miami, but who knows what that is towards the end of the year. And then they got like Detroit at home. They still got the Rams again, which by then maybe they're healthy.
A lot of things conspiring.
Like, I mean, big picture, I don't know if McCaffrey plays this season. I mean, just honestly, my gut. Like, I think he's probably at least, well, IR says he's at least 2 more weeks out. I'm thinking he might be like at least 4 or 5. If by mid-season the Niners are like 3-5, does he shut it down?
If I had to guess right now, I would say maybe we see him week 6, maybe week 7, and then that would be best case scenario. But I think week 9 are probably most likely. But we'll see. And then obviously all these other injuries, you got to hope. I mean, I was waiting with bated breath all day to see if Sam Darnold's MRI came back clean, and it did. I hope it does with Purdy, because if it comes back that he's going to miss multiple weeks, all of a sudden this turns into a are we going to go 5-12 type thing.
Here comes Brandon Allen.
Not exactly a Brock Purdy level prospect, Brandon Allen. Who's your third string?
Astronaut.
Oh, never mind. The season's back on.
I know. Honestly,
in
my head, I was like, do they make a call to the Rams for Jimmy?
Oh.
But I think that's burned. I think they hate each other. The way it ended.
There's this guy that works for Fox that I think may have an interest in coming home.
Oh, God.
Let's not even bring it up. Purdy's going to be fine. The MRI is going to come back clean. Everything's going to be okay. But
they're like, oh, he's day to day, but he's getting an MRI.
yeah, they're like, what, on his leg, on his arm? No, it's his back. You're like, oh, shoot.
I like because he's carrying the freaking team.
Yeah, it was him and Jennings carried the team single-handedly yesterday. The other 49 guys on the active roster on game day, not so much.
We'll see.
I picked them to go 13-4. This is not looking good. Not looking good.
13. I mean, it's crazy. Like how hard does it go 13? Like we have to go
12-2.
12-2.
Yeah. Not gonna happen. Not great, Bob. Not great.
I'm like, in my head, I'm like, do we just like get in as like a 6-7 seed and then be the team that no one wants to play?
I think that might have to be the role, unless obviously the Seahawks really come back to earth and then maybe get the 3 or something. But just
if Seattle loses to Detroit and we win a game, we're almost 11-point favorites.
You'll feel much better.
No, because I keep thinking that game's the next week because the Niners play Arizona after that. If the Niners can go to Seattle only down one game, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. But if they come into that and the Seahawks are, whatever, 5-1, and you're, 2-4, it's like, oh boy, that's not going to be fun. So you think, that's your take this week. Last week you said the Panthers would go.
Crazy. The only team, if I was a 6 or 7 seed, the one team I'd be like, I don't want to see would be Minnesota. Heck yeah. Neither do the Niners.
Please, God, let us be that team. Oh, please let us beat the Packers. There's Joey's Feels Great Baby, his wildest take. The Niners missed the playoffs. Devastating. Let's close the pod. We're running a little over on time here. I went to the game on Saturday in Oakland, the 5th to last game in Oakland A's history. The last fireworks night, there was a drone show. It was really cool, really well done. It was against the Yankees. We got freaking blanked 10-0, but I was in a box with my family, and it was so much fun.
Kayla showed me, and she's like, yeah, Jamie's there in her Yankees. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. She's
yeah.
Oh, Eric's like, yeah, this is where I grew up. It's like my childhood, everything. And she's just like, yeah.
Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton hit home runs like right at us. And both times I was like, oh my God, I'm in danger. Like just absolute missiles to left field where we were sitting. But man, I'm flying up on Thursday, going to the final game.
Flying up Thursday.
I'm flying up day of, and I'm taking Bart from the Oakland airport to the Coliseum and meeting my family there who's going to drive. And we're just going to spend the whole day there. There's supposedly a tent sale with all this A's memorabilia from over the years that, we're just going to forage through and look at that. I sent you the picture earlier today. There's that replica Coliseum giveaway. It looks like ass. So I'm like, who gives a shit about that? Yeah, that's typical Dave Cavill, John Fisher effort with that thing looking terrible. I just want to.
I don't know what this was. Why they haven't given like they're leaving. Like here's like the picture of like
the place we're leaving. Yeah, so stupid. Just don't give anything away. You don't give a shit about us anyway. That's the only point I wanted to make.
Make the game free.
Yeah, there's just nothing left to say at this point. It's
crazy to me that it's actually like, what's the biggest, the most crazy part is there's 3 home games left.
Yeah.
And like, still people are like, where are they going to be like in 3 or 4 years?
Yeah. At best case scenario, they'll spend 4 years in Sacramento and then go to Las Vegas. Best case scenario. They're trying to say they're only going to play 3 there. Best case scenario is 4. They have not only has there not been any breaking of ground there, they don't have the money and they don't have the investment. Are you
sure they're going to be even there 3 years?
Well, there's a lot of stuff coming out recently saying that they have an out.
Am I crazy thinking there's a chance that they it's completely just like code red, like they have nowhere to be?
The Coliseum will be open in 2026 for them to move back there. And there's been a lot of chatter about that recently, just because do you really think there's going to be a $1.5 billion ballpark built in Sacramento? Like, there's just no way that a city of 400,000 people in a region of 400,000 people is going to support that. Like, I know Vivek Ranadive's done a good job with the Kings, but they're still the Kings. Like, nobody gives a shit. Like, let's be real here. Like, they're like the 28th most relevant basketball franchise. There's no desire in Sacramento to have a $1.5 billion construction project for a billionaire coming from out of town who nobody likes. Like, it's just not going to happen. This whole thing is so needless. It did not need to happen. He could have sold to Joe Lacob. Joe Lacob could have been given the team in 2005 instead of Lou Wolf.
It's really interesting, like what Major League Baseball's role in it. Just comparing it to the Coyotes that they did. I mean, the NHL came in there and said, "Dude, you're sell the shit."
Yeah.
Like,
you're a problem.
Yeah, like they gave him a sweet deal because they did not want to go to court against him, because they realize when they get to court, they're eventually going to say, you can't tell a guy what to do with what he owns. Like, and they knew it. So they basically gave him this sweetheart deal just to make him go. And they said, oh, you can have a team back when you like do all this stuff. No, full well knowing this guy ain't do shit. And he already has just said, yeah, I'm done. I'm not even going to try. So I'm shocked the A's haven't, or not the A's, the league hasn't.
That's because this is a league that's run by a bunch of idiots.
I don't know what they like. Can they really just be like, what would their grounds be for like, you need to sell if you don't do this, sell the team?
The grounds would be that they did it with Frank McCourt and the Dodgers in 2011, and they forced him to sell to that, Magic Johnson group that now owns the Dodgers. They forced him out because he had financial issues. The Marlins, they forced the sale of the Marlins in, I think it was like 2009. After their previous owner was caught up in a bunch of financial shit. The Mets ownership changed because of the Bernie Madoff crisis, where one of their owners lost all of his money. Like, there's precedent for the league stepping in, and in football this happens often. Like, the Carolina guy, Richardson, made some racist comment. He was gone in like 60 seconds. They were like, oh, we found a billionaire. All right, you're out of here. Like, there's precedent.
The difference is like that team, even though as shit as it, what did that sell for? Like $2 billion?
Yeah.
What? Who's buying the A's?
And yeah, Forbes has the A's.
Who's buying the A's and where are they putting them?
Forbes has the A's at like $1.4 billion. I'm like, $1.4 billion? Like, American dollars? Are we talking Japanese yen? Like, this team is worth like
Arby's coupons.
Like, please, this is so needless. Let something happen where Fisher is forced to sell. Let the league step in. Let the Sacramento thing fall apart. Let the Vegas thing fall apart. Force these clowns, Cavill and Fisher, to have to just pay for all of this shit that they put our fans through over the last 3 years since they pulled the plug. It's just the most disgusting act in the history of sports, and
You thought the A's Moneyball was a movie? They come back like the same team, not like a new expansion. Like,
yeah, wearing green and gold with Oakland on the front. Yeah. Oh, would that be just please God? I think about this all the time. Like, it's a lottery ticket. That's the chances at this point that the A's ever play in Oakland again.
The crazy thing is, I feel like it's more likely than that, because where are they going? I don't know. Some part of me still thinks like I mean, they're going to end up.
I see that sentiment too among I've read every story this week. Everyone's doing retrospectives and what the Coliseum and the A's mean to me and whatever. And every one of them is like, there's still that glimmer of hope. And I'm like, is there? Because if there is, like, please God, just let it happen. Let Fisher and Cavill just blow it, because Sacramento is not going to want to put up that kind of money. Vegas doesn't want to get in bed with Fisher. They want expansion. Let this thing fall apart and keep the A's in Oakland. For the love of God, give us a victory, folks. Bring us something. We deserve it.
That'd be something. Thursday, he just announces, like, I've sold the team.
Oh, my God. The fans would rush the field, but not in a violent way. It'd just all be out there singing Kumbaya. Let something, please, God. I will trade let the Vikings go 3-14 this year and lose 14 in a row if it means the A's stay in Oakland long term, for all I care. Praying for a miracle right before my final game as an Oakland A's fan.
Isn't that
Please, God.
crazy? Isn't that great? Like, I don't know.
It's
I've
insane.
become like, I don't follow just the sport itself, and as I get older, I don't only have so much time to devote countless hours of fandom. But like, yeah, man, I mean, I could not imagine being you. I really could.
Imagine 72 hours from now, the Sharks will no longer exist. Oh my God,
Yeah.
you would be apoplectic. You'd be like, what do I even do? But this is the life we live, and we hold out just a little sliver of hope. So A's fans listening, say a prayer. Something might happen. Something could happen. Please, just make sure that this isn't the last time. I really hope it isn't. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back again next week to talk about NFL football and not so much this A's fiasco. Thanks everybody for listening, liking, rating, and subscribing. And for those of us, who bring the pod to you, thank you for reaching out to us on social media and whatnot in the recent weeks with some of our videos. We really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week.